Hello, my friends, and welcome to the Philosophy of Heroes, a series where we take a look into the philosophy and psychology of heroes from popular culture. Through these character studies, my aim is to analyze modern heroic idols that are held up by our culture in the hopes that we may emulate their values and be a little more heroic in our own lives. In today's video, we're looking at Aragorn from The Lord of the Rings. Aragorn is a human character in J.R.R. Tolkien's Legendarium who plays a crucial role in the events of The Lord of the Rings. He's a member of the Dunedain, a long-lived, noble race descendant from the Númenóreans, a race of men with part elven lineage who were initially favoured by the Valar, or deities. Of note, this makes Aragorn 87 years old during the events of Lord of the Rings.
You cannot be 80.
87.
Aragorn is descendant from Isildur, king of Gondor and Arnor, making Aragorn himself heir to the throne. When we encounter Aragorn at the start of Lord of the Rings, he's a ranger living in the wild going by the name of Strider. By the end of the events of Lord of the Rings, Aragorn has ascended to the throne of Gondor, now King Elessar. The title Elessar represents hope, healing, and the renewal of Middle-earth following the downfall of the Dark Lord Sauron. Suffice to say, Aragorn is both of noble birth and virtuous character. So let's jump into his philosophy. Because of Aragorn's age and experience, Aragorn is already a fully integrated warrior when we meet him at the start of The Lord of the Rings. What does this mean? According to Douglas Gillette and Robert Moore's Jungian philosophy, the warrior in his fullness is able to wield violence effectively, achieve his goals, overcome adversity, protect himself and others, and enforce boundaries. Unlike the immature warrior, the warrior in his fullness has integrated his shadow and tempered his ego. This means he never shows off. He acts with the minimum necessary force to accomplish his goals. He has cultivated self-discipline and a virtuous character, allowing him to be guided by benevolence and a sense of duty rather than self-gain. Aragorn is a highly competent fighter. He is an expert swordsman, bowman, navigator, battle tactician, and even healer. Aragorn is no stranger to war, making him intimately familiar with the nature of suffering and death. Moreover, Aragorn has nothing to prove. He's incorruptible and protective. And in spite of this, Aragorn is exceptionally humble. To stick with Jungian philosophy, Aragorn has integrated his shadow. The shadow is those parts of the spirit which possess the greatest potential for harm and malevolence. Aragorn sees these aspects of his nature, his capacity to harm, his capacity to kill, and his capacity to be corrupted. He knows exactly what he's capable of, and he chooses not to do so. This is what makes Aragorn truly good. He has a healthy sense of reverence and wariness of what he's capable of. Aragorn is well aware that the race of men is susceptible to corruption and hubris, the way his ancestor Isildur displayed when he chose not to destroy the One Ring. He therefore expresses a healthy level of self-doubt, predicated on his uncompromising self-awareness and the lessons of his history and genealogy specifically. What we get from this is a man who is humble and modest, in spite of being objectively the most competent in almost every situation. Aragorn's own journey from warrior to king is one of humility and magnanimity. I mentioned magnanimity in my video talking about the philosophy of Vegeta from Dragon Ball Z. If you haven't checked that out, I'm putting a card on the screen now so you can go and watch it. Magnanimity is a virtue described by Aristotle as the ability to recognize your own greatness without arrogance or false modesty. I think of it as the combination of greatness of spirit and self-awareness. This awareness of spiritual greatness then leads to a sense of generosity and obligation to those lesser than you, making Aragorn a dutiful and benevolent protector of Frodo and the Fellowship. The French expression noblesse oblige comes to mind. With nobility comes an obligation to act with benevolence and leadership to those less accomplished. This leads me to another overlooked but crucial aspect of Aragorn's philosophy. Aragorn shows a broad range of competencies which, when taken together, amount to wisdom. He has a deep knowledge of his environment, including navigation and geography, history and lore, and flora and fauna. He also shows excellent judgment in matters of combat and warfare, decision-making, moral judgment, and matters of faith and intuition. I like the scene in The Return of the King when Gandalf shows a hint of despair that he may have sent Frodo to his death by setting him on a path to Mordor with Sam. Aragorn reminds Gandalf to listen to his heart.
Every day Frodo moves closer to Mordor. Do you know that? What does your heart tell you?
This shows that Aragorn is not only practically wise, but also intuitively wise. He has a sense of faith or belief in the way of things that transcends the immediate and concrete facts of the material world. It should be no secret that Tolkien wrote The Lord of the Rings as an essentially Catholic fiction. This means that there are forces at play which we might regard as supernatural or divine. Things have a natural course, or telos, the ancient Greek word for purpose. This exchange between Aragorn and Gandalf shows that Aragorn is able to access this higher purpose and use it to reassure himself he is doing the right thing, or following God's path, so to speak. This is a subtle aspect of wisdom which I believe is sorely underdeveloped in our modern secular culture. We have not found a satisfactory way to reconcile faith as a guiding force with the empirical emphasis of reason and science. This practical and intuitive wisdom makes Aragorn uniquely qualified to preserve the natural balance and harmony of things. In this sense, Aragorn is philosophically Stoic. Stoicism is typically regarded as an attitude of acceptance or non-attachment to the way things are. But what modern advocates often overlook is that Stoicism is grounded in an acknowledgement for the natural order of things. This means knowledge of nature itself, or perhaps the divine, and then our place within it. Unlike Sauron and the evil forces of Middle-earth who seek to mutilate and destroy nature, Aragorn seeks to live harmoniously and flourish within the natural order. This sets up perhaps the highest aspect of his character. I'm going to round out Aragorn's philosophy by discussing how he embodies the king archetype. The benefit of analysing Tolkien's work philosophically is that he was a very archetypal writer. There's no subversion or transvaluation in Tolkien's work. Thematically, it's very straightforward. He deals with good and evil, friendship, courage, power, and hope. There's nothing allegorical or metaphorical going on. What you see is what you get, in the best way, I should add. This means that Tolkien's characters tend to conform to Jungian archetypes and familiar cultural symbols. In my interpretation, Aragorn's character arc is essentially that of a completely integrated masculinity and his ascent to the good king. The good king is King Arthur. It's Mufasa. It's God's emissary on earth. The good king represents order, stability, peace, prosperity, generativity, fertility, safety, and benevolence. The good king represents full integration and unity within the self, and this carries over into their kingdom. The good king unites people under a single banner. It requires full cultivation of other Jungian archetypes like the warrior to develop strength, the lover, to develop benevolence, and the magician to develop competence. It also requires cultivation of Aristotelian virtues like justice, wisdom, and magnanimity. And it doesn't hurt to have a sense for the divine or natural order of things like we find in Stoic philosophy. Aragorn's journey from noble birth, through his training as a ranger and protector of the realm, to his role as a hero and leader in the events of Lord of the Rings all lead him to and qualify him for the role of king, which is what we get at the end of Return of the King. As an audience, we completely accept and endorse Aragorn as king. We feel good knowing that Aragorn is the one to rule. By contrast, we might feel uneasy or unsatisfied knowing it were anyone else. Frodo is arguably too wounded and traumatized by the darkness. Sam, though kind, is too naive and simple. Gimli and Legolas are both fulsome warriors, but fall short in the breadth of their character. Boromir and his susceptibility to corruption should give us a shudder. Gandalf may get a vote of approval from the audience, but there's something not quite right, and that is because Gandalf embodies the wise old man archetype rather than the king archetype. And that is why, in the next episode of the Philosophy of Heroes, I'll be taking a look at Gandalf. We like Aragorn as king because his character is complete. He's fully integrated and fully cultivated, making him strong, wise, and virtuous. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing or checking out my other videos. Have a lovely day.